One thing you mentioned in the book, which a lot of us have a habit of doing, is we get involved in our work, we don't eat our breakfast, we load up a lunch, and then we really pack it out on dinner. And so the concept of this pacing of caloric amounts is really skewed with that type of approach. Essentially, the course of the word, break fast, is you're breaking a fast from overnight. Explain that concept to us in the best way throughout the day so that we can get this caloric balance.
Absolutely. First off, let me comment that when you're looking in the scientific literature, there's actually a word, nighttime eating syndrome, a term that refers to the process of skipping breakfast, barely eating lunch, and then gorging in the evening, potentially even in the middle of the night. So that pattern now has a clinical term associated with it. What's interesting is how many people don't feel hungry in the morning when our hormonal balance, our high cortisol and high glucagon and low insulin
So this is part
levels.
of the culprit then, a hormonal imbalance.
Well, it's interesting that we don't feel hunger with the hormonal balance that we wake up with, because cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which degrades muscle tissue to get amino acids, not only to build proteins in more essential organs than muscle, but also as a fuel source. And when we wake up, we are burning our own muscle tissue as fuel. Our body is eating itself. It's eating its own muscle tissue when we wake. And it doesn't make any difference if you feel hungry or not. Now, the issue as to why we don't feel hungry when we're in the starved state, when we wake up, is very interesting. And the science is very poor in that area. For example, when I was teaching my medical school course at UCSF, which just finished a couple weeks ago, I opened it for discussion. There are students and acting medical doctors in this course that will have very deep experience in some specific area of medicine. And so I open it up for discussion when it's an area that the literature is weak on.
Okay.
And this question of why we don't feel hungry when the body is in such a starved state and eating its own muscle tissue for fuel is not known. I have my own ideas as to this, and there's some it's fairly technical, but the bottom line is there's a possibility that when we wake up and we're thinking about other things, that we sense less of what we're not thinking about, which might include hunger. But it's undoubtedly much more complicated than that. But many of us follow our hunger level to determine when we're eating. And unfortunately, many of us don't feel hungry when we wake up. In fact, I know several microbiology PhDs, even some dietitians who follow their hunger more than anything else and won't eat breakfast. It's an interesting phenomenon. But if you think about it, our body can only store fat very efficiently. It cannot store protein, sugars, or water very well. So when we wake up, we're low on all three of those. And if we don't consume them, the body will stay low on those until we eat and drink later on.